All right, Shalom. I want to start off as always by giving all praises and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushai, Bahashim Wacha HaKodash. The abundance unto the apostles, the elders, and the bishops of Great Millstone. I want to send much love unto the brothers out there doing his work in truth and sincerity. And I also want to send peace and blessings unto the believers of the hopeful elect. And in this morning's lesson, I wanted to do a response video unto this video here that was put up by GB News, which came out 12 days ago. And this is a London, Britain-based news. And as you can see, the title of their video reads, "Is Cash Dead? The Truth About Britain's Cashless Future Exposed." So over in the UK, man, they're pretty much been set up for digital currencies. All right. And as you're going to hear in this video, okay, certain schools, certain banks, certain stores just won't accept cash. Now, some do, but they're starting to see an uptick of businesses and different places saying, no, we don't want your cash, or they don't accept the cash. All right. They want everything to be digital. So this is just, another building block to the MOTB system being established. It's going to start with those digital currencies, but eventually it will get to that C-HIP. So let's play this video here, man. And Lord willing, I pray that it's edifying. Here we go. I have to speed up a little bit. Make sure it's not too fast. Let's see here. Yeah, so that should be good enough.
Here's a big question. It's an issue that both Ben and I read. We don't always agree, as you know, but is cash still king? Of course it isn't. The Treasury Select Committee has released a report today talking about the dangers of us becoming a cashless society, warning it'll hit the vulnerable hardest.
That's right. Dame Meg Hillier is the chairwoman of the Treasury Select Committee and Labour MP Hackney South and Shoreditch. Good morning to you, Dame Hillier. So just tell us what the outcome could be. What are the risks of us having no cash to spend in the shops?
Well, look, we don't think we've got to that point yet, but we are concerned that it's harder for a lot of people to spend cash. Like a lot of businesses, parking meters, other services just don't accept cash. So that affects people who, if you're poorer and you're trying to budget, even if you have a credit card, that's £100 at the tap. That's a kind of worrying amount to spend if you're not careful as you're tracking it. And sometimes people haven't got a digital smartphone. And we also have some really compelling evidence about the challenges for people with learning disabilities and people who fled or in situations of domestic abuse where they're
Atera is the IT painkiller. Remote monitoring and management, remote access, help desk and ticketing.
Abusers can easily track them digitally, but cash is a lifeline. So there are lots of things that we need to be thinking about as, some people think, oh, it's quite normal. I've got children who, I offered them a £20 note, don't know what to do with it because they're used to seeing everything digitally. And we know that lots of people just do that digital route, but we've got to remember that the people who don't need to be able to use cash and have it accepted in businesses that they frequent.
I thought there's a really fascinating example in your report, Dame Meg, where you talked about the mother who went to school. She's in an abusive relationship. The school would not let her pay for her child's school meals with cash, and the husband was withholding money. And so this put her in an impossible position, and the school was inflexible and simply wouldn't allow cash to be as a transaction. Is your committee saying that should be made illegal?
Well, we have got as far as saying that you have to accept cash. We're saying, because one of the things was interesting, Andrew, we couldn't get enough evidence about where cash is accepted, but we did get quite a lot of anecdotal evidence. Some parts of the country you can pay for parking in cash. In my part of London, you pretty much can't. You have to download an app. I remember being in Wales on holiday, and there I was with some cash, but not the right coins for the machine. And thankfully, a good Welsh Samaritan helped me out and actually just gave me some money so that I could pay for the parking. So you have differences in different parts of the country. But that case that you highlight was one that really struck home for the committee. And I think that this is also a wake-up call for businesses and other bodies that you do need to understand that there may be very good reasons why people just can't pay in other ways. And frankly, it shouldn't be beyond the wit of a school or a small business to have a small float of cash, to make sure that people who are in those situations can pay for the services that they want to purchase.
Do you need a little grooming TLC ahead of a big summer? Maybe a beard looking a little bit wild? Come.
This is a David versus Goliath fight you have on your hands. There are big banks, there are big transnational corporations that would love to see the end of cash, Meg. You had to predict how many years do you think you can keep the fight to keep cash in people's pockets?
Well, it's interesting actually, because obviously lockdown saw an increase in people using digital routes, but actually since lockdown, we've seen an uptick in people using cash, possibly because they're budgeting in the difficult financial situation many households are in. But people are saying they do want to spend in cash. And when we spoke to people like the markets, street markets, cash is still king in those sorts of environments. So it's not dead yet, but the government's doing this thing called a financial inclusion strategy. So it's looking overall at how people use money and access services that require that sort of spending. And we're saying to them to really think about these things and perhaps do a bit of work to find out where cash is accepted and where it's not, and what the impact is on different groups of people.
And part of the problem, as Bev alluded to, the banks, they're closing so many cash machines now. The high street where I live in North London, there were 3 bank machines. They've all gone, which is making it more and more difficult to get cash. How can you persuade the banks that they've got a community duty to keep cash available?
Well, this is interesting, and certainly the bodies that deal with providing cash, so this is different from accepting it in the business, of course, are all...
If you've been injured in a recent car accident that wasn't your fault, I'm going to show you how I got this.
Are all private. The government's introducing this thing called banking hubs, and we'll wait to see how that goes. That's an aim to get that money. That's more, though, perhaps, Andrew, other than for those of us in London, it's less of an issue than it is for perhaps rural areas where banks have closed in villages and small towns in quite large numbers. But the two are definitely connected, and we touch on that in our work. Because if businesses can't bank the cash that they receive from customers, that means that they're maybe more inclined to lean into not accepting cash at all. But I think a lot of businesses just would not have thought of the impact on some of those individuals that can only pay by cash. And one of the other things we're very concerned about is what we call the poverty premium. If you haven't got much money and you only use cash because you haven't got a smartphone and you're worried about overspending, and even if you do have a card, you're using it to budget, there are fewer and fewer places. If there are fewer and fewer places where you can spend that money, you may end up paying a higher price for your goods and services than those of us who can use digital. But I've been trying to use cash more since we've been doing this work.
I was
and it's
going to
really
ask you,
interesting in the supermarket, for instance, there can be a long queue.
Yeah, but do you always carry cash? Because I do, as a point of principle, I always carry cash.
Yeah, I do, and especially since we picked up on this issue about women, mainly women, but people, victims of domestic abuse. I make the point of trying to pay in cash when I can. Sometimes I still do use digital, but I think it is important that the more of us use it or lose it, really. We show that this is still legal tender. It's something that we should. It's you physically can see it. I think it's something that's important to do, and there's lots of places in my part of central London where cash is just not accepted.
At GB News, we believe in the power of free.
All right, so there you have it, man. They gave a few examples of what they're dealing with over there in London. Certain banks have stopped issuing out cash at certain, machines. Certain schools are not accepting cash. And ultimately, the UK government is looking to get rid of cash overall. And this is going to be a reality soon across all governments. This is the plans of the elite. Ultimately, it's the Most High's plan to bring in the fulfillment of the MOTB. But we're seeing by little and little cash being pretty much useless in society. Okay. Most people, don't use cash like that. Some do, people who do like side hustles and, certain street jobs, so to speak, they'll get paid in cash. Sometimes, they get a cash app or, digitally, but, like certain mechanics and plumbers and stuff like that, but they be getting side hustles and, tips and stuff like that in cash. But eventually they're going to do away with that. Okay. As I played in a video last night, this guy, Augustine, one of the head guys of the Bank of International Settlements, I think that's the bank, he said that right now they don't know who's using a $100 bill or what they're using it for, pretty much, right? But he said with central bank digital currencies, we'll have the technology to track and trace every so-called dollar that's being spent. And that's the goal, okay, to give them absolute control. As he quoted, he says he's going to give the banks absolute control. And that's what they want, all right? So they're setting a trap for the people, It's happening in other countries like Nigeria, right? they're texting, they're piloting these CBDCs and big, other currencies, digital currencies, but it's going to all lead to the MOTB, and that's the point of the lesson. Okay, is cash dead? It will be soon. Okay, so I'll end here with this precept. This is Psalm chapter 140, verse 1. It says, "Deliver me, O Yahweh, from the evil man. Preserve me from the violent man." And that's Esau. Okay, it says, "Who imagine mischiefs in their heart. Continually are they gathered together for war." And it's not only physical war that Esau is gathering for. He's gathering to go to war for financial wars, or whether it's a chemical warfare, disease warfare. He all about it. Okay, and he's going to go to war with the people behind cash. He's going to make it to where you have no access to cash, and that these businesses and these companies, wherever they may be, ain't accepting no cash because they have a goal in mind. Ultimately, it's the Most High's goal, right? To go cashless. It says they have sharpened their tongues like a serpent. Adder's poison is under their lips, and this is through their policies. Okay. It says, "Keep me, O Yahweh, from the hands of the wicked men in the power. Preserve me from the violent men who have purpose to overthrow my goings." And once you, take that MOTB, man, that's going to be Esau overthrow your goings. But even with these digital currencies, man, it's going to be certain regulations, man, they're going to be hard to accept just to get by, But we'll see how it's going to be, man. Once this thing truly hit, it's going to be a wake-up call to us all, But the Lord will make a way, all right, through this stuff. We just don't know how it's going to turn out, right? But eventually, the elect will win. It says, "The proud have hid a snare for me in cords. They have spread a net by the wayside. They have set gins for me." Selah. And Esau is doing that. This is why you heard them say in the video how, there's certain school didn't accept the mother's cash to buy her kids lunch. What the hell you mean? The cash is still a legal tender. It should be. But they have a rule, no, we're not accepting no cash, so your child gonna be hungry. That's crazy. But this is a snare in the trap that's being set up to ultimately make you beg for those digital currencies. All right. So I'll close out with that, man. Low windows edifying. I'll praise Yahweh Shem Al Shabbat Shem Chakadash. Shalom.